Let's just get this out of the way first. Crowsworn is not a Hollow Knight ripoff. When the game eventually ramps up in its marketing as it approaches its planned release date of late next year, it will be met with an even higher volume of the responses it received on its initial reveal, claiming it's simply ripping off Hollow Knight. That was far from the only response to the trailer that was released in mid-2021. In fact, I'd say overall it was met with a very positive reception, and its incredibly well-funded Kickstarter is proof of that. But Hollow Knight was definitely the first game that popped into most people's minds when seeing this, and a select group of those people were, for whatever reason, really upset with that. I'd love to go on a little rant about why taking inspiration is not inherently evil, how copying a game with the level of quality that Hollow Knight has effectively is incredibly difficult and not an easy way to print off money with minimal effort, how Hollow Knight itself is an amalgamation of hundreds of games that have come before it, etc, etc, but instead of taking a massive chunk of this video to make these points, I'm just gonna point you guys to this video right here. It's linked in the description, it's only 5 minutes, and I think it's an incredibly succinct way to explain why this mentality is unfair to the developers and doesn't really have any legs to stand on. And honestly, just the fact that Matthew Griffin, who published Hollow Knight, is also publishing Crowsworn now should be indication enough that this isn't just a straight rip. I doubt you'd want to publish something that's just shamelessly ripping off your product. Crowsworn absolutely takes stylistic inspiration from Hollow Knight, and considering it matches that game's look the way it does, with the thicker borders on character models, the bold colors, the darker backgrounds that give off a foreboding atmosphere, and the multi-layered background assets which contribute to a beautiful faux 3D look, all while being an action Metroidvania just like our buggy friend over here, it does make sense why so many of us are reminded of the beloved game that took an entire generation of gamers and made them froth at the mouth over a half spider in a red dress sticking her voluptuous gluteus maximus out to the skies for— I'm sorry, I was exposed to these pictures against my will because of this goddamn subreddit, and now I'm bringing you all with me so I don't have to suffer alone. Despite being so similar on the surface though, Crowsworn has so much going for it when you delve a little bit deeper that I think maybe the biggest similarity between itself and Hollow Knight will wind up being that they both set a new gold standard for other Metroidvanias to try and reach. Crowsworn's combat, let's try to say that 5 times fast, has been described by the developer itself, Mongoose Rodeo, as a cross between Bloodborne and Devil May Cry, and that can be seen really clearly in the stylish combos that we've seen through the first trailer and the Kickstarter updates. Your arsenal includes a scythe for melee attacks, 2 pistols for ranged attacks, and magical attacks called Corvian powers, which can be any number of things really. Individually, all 3 of these look incredibly fun to use, but their real potential seems to lie in the ability to interlace these 3 combat basics together. One of my favorite examples of this is the fact that you can send your scythe spinning outwards in front of you and shoot it with your pistol to basically ping-pong it repeatedly into an enemy. The scythe does more damage than the bullets, so you get the most DPS out of your gun using this method, and it looks cool as hell as you do it. Another fun clip the dev shared has so much going on that you can't really process it in real time if you don't already know what's happening. After a quick, short scythe combo, the player sends out 2 different Corvian powers, which the devs have let us know consume a resource called Malice, which is obtained through doing damage with your scythe. The first power is a massive Iron Man unibeam-like move, which would probably be incredibly useful against a large group of enemies that are lined up in front of you. And the second sends a little red monster through the ground towards the enemy. Originally, I thought this was a saw or something, but after slowing it down, it's either a little creature or a hand of some sort. And I think the purpose of this is actually to pull the enemy towards you. It's a little bit hard to tell with this clip, but you can see that the hand winds up behind the enemy and then moves forwards, seemingly taking the enemy with it since homie starts to move before he's hit for the first time with the gun here. So my guess is that usually this power is used to achieve an almost grapple effect of sorts that lets you grab an enemy and then bring them in for a melee combo. The player then seems to combine Corvian powers with their bullets, creating high caliber rounds of sorts with some bonus and really amazing looking effects, and after those run out they start shooting normal bullets again, the last of which is higher powered. I assume that's an upgrade that you can unlock where the last bullet in the chamber is super powerful. This is a 5-second clip that includes 2 dodges, 2 melee attacks, 3 unique powers, 9 shots, and probably 1 upgrade. Action-packed might be the understatement of the year. The combat looks so sophisticated and capable of so much, and as a Metroidvania, I think that makes it pretty unique. You usually don't see this level of complexity in this type of game. The same way that the Ori games create a deep, rich, and incredibly fluid movement system, I think Crowsworn could be the unopposed king of combat in this genre, because as great of an experience as Hollow Knight's combat is, it doesn't have nearly the same level of functionality that Crowsworn seemingly will, although I guess we'll see if that changes when Silksong comes out. Through the Kickstarter updates, especially the backer exclusive ones, we've gotten a sneak peek at some details that promise a really particular and especially cinematic final product. One of the goals that the Kickstarter met mentioned the addition of voice acting in the game, and another said that the game would now include multiple cutscenes in the same same vein as the animated intro for the Kickstarter trailer. Not only do these new campaign goals push the idea of a more cinematic Metroidvania, which is, I'd argue, one of the biggest things that make Metroid Dread and the Ori games as good as they are, but the same idea is being conveyed through the game's animations, music, and set-piece-like backgrounds, particularly with the bosses. The dev team has opened up about the importance of inverse kinematics in making their bosses, which allows for an accurate skeletal movement based on the motion that you want your character to perform. I won't show the small boss showcase that the team gave for this concept here, since it seems they want to keep that for backers only, but it creates some really cool and effective animations. And to add to that, another thing that caught my eye on the Kickstarter is that apparently one of the bosses showcased in the trailer has over 200 frames of animation for one combo, with Mongoose Rodeo going on to clarify that usually Metroidvanias don't even have that many frames of animation for the entirety of their main character. The level of polish that seems to be going into this game is above and beyond what we usually see in the industry, especially for a crowd-funded project. And the team's transparency on their Kickstarter, their frequent updates, their multiple proof of concept clips, etc. paint a really comforting picture of the future of this game. Another element that the team wanted to highlight is the dynamic music of this game, something that a few other games have started doing to incredible effect already, the most popular of which probably being Doom. Dynamic music effectively reacts to the player's actions in-game. Rather than having a basic track for the whole boss fight, for example, the music gets more intense when you do more damage or enter new phases, allowing the track to be a bit more complex without running the risk of clashing with the rest of what's going on. Maybe my favorite of the game's cinematic elements, though, is the staging of the boss fights. They all seem to convey epic proportions and feature unique areas like a dungeon-like room that's seemingly ripe with secrets, a thorny dark village, and a bridge that looks like it leads to frickin' Anor Londo, coincidentally featuring a boss that looks like Slave Knight Gale. These seem a bit more, I don't know, momentous than you usually get in a 2D setting. Not to take away from games of that nature, but they usually don't have this feeling of grandeur. I mean, look at this, the golden rays of light hitting this imperial castle with seemingly dozens of layers making up the background that add complexity and depth to it all. This is freaking gorgeous, how can you not love this? The game also seems like it'll be featuring a pretty unique progression system, with the two elements that make up that part of the game being runes and constellations. Runes come in 3 different types and augment your combat style, with a cool addition being the fact that these runes can be boosted by other runes that are slotted into the sockets adjacent to them, which are, I guess I'll just read straight from the Kickstarter, bonuses that can range from subtle modifiers like increasing your damage or range to more unique effects like adding area of effect explosions to your bullet projectiles. Even more interesting than this, though, is the constellation system that they have, which I'll admit I don't fully understand through the short blurb description here, but it seems to be really cool. You collect star fragments throughout the map which can be equipped to enhance your abilities, and these are equipped in specific configurations that create constellations, eventually giving you your own personal little star system that reflects your playstyle. I don't know exactly how this is going to play out in the game, but the idea alone feels so inspired and interesting, and it's like one of those small things that, like I've mentioned before, really takes games like this to the next level. It shows so much care and vision in such a small way that you walk away with a nice feeling just from this thing existing. The last big thing I want to talk about is the traversal, because it seems like this game is following the trend that I've been really loving in modern Metroidvanias, where the upgrades and abilities aren't just bigger gun or lets you break this thing or this type of wall. I'm sure that'll still be present to some extent, but it looks like most of the upgrades will open up unique traversal mechanics, like this ability to turn into mist and dash between lamps or crystals, or this ridiculous spinning spike pogo BS that's so over the top in the best way. What the hell is this, a Sonic game? I love it. I think Hollow Knight could be a bit stilted in its platforming sometimes just because you had to be so careful on edging towards a cliff and dashing at the exact right time, and while that absolutely has its place, and I do really enjoy the platforming puzzles from Hollow Knight, I hope that Crowsworn lives up to some of what it's shown here, insofar as having the platform be a bit more connected and smoother rather than that tense neck, pinpoint, tiny crevice to dash through platforming of Hollow Knight. I just think that would suit this game a bit more considering how fast-paced and energetic it seems to be. For 2022, I'm going to be giving upcoming games that I talk about a little bit of a scouting report at the end of the video, which is hopefully something I'll actually remember to do for these videos since I wasn't doing it last year, but if I'm going to call this series of videos the scouting station, I should probably try to actually lean into the idea. So this is the scouting report for Crowsworn. It's not a very passive game, and it's tough to say it's particularly unique. Plus, we've yet to see many details on the NPCs that you'll meet along the way, but it's beautiful, action-packed, shows an insane amount of promise, and still offers innovative ideas despite wearing its inspirations on its sleeves. To read from the little comment blurb I made down at the bottom, sum, Crowsworn has shown two things in its early stages: ambition and polish. A combination that's sometimes rare to see, especially this far from the game's release. It has lofty goals, but the team seems capable of meeting and perhaps surpassing them, with great communication and updates keeping backers clued in to every major step of the process. Let me know what you guys think of Crowsworn. I was hooked on this thing the second that I saw it, and it's actually the first and currently only thing I've ever backed myself. I have a lot of faith in this game, and I'm interested to hear what other people think about it. Leave a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.